I think we're ready to move on. Our next guest, I'm seeing him backstage, is Jason Lengstorf. Did I get that?
Close enough.
Close enough.
I'm admiring your pro setup over there. Whatever you got, I needed some of that.
Thank you very much. I got I'm realizing now that your setup is wider angle than mine, so I got to do some oh no, you can see my terrible office back here.
Oh yeah, like what's hiding just off screen, like
exactly,
sort of
right? You can't see the pile of unhandled Amazon boxes behind there.
yeah, you don't want to see what's going on behind here. Like that's why I hide it, right? Well, Jason, man, it's cool of you to join us. Why don't you, for people that don't know you, why don't you start by telling them who you are, what you do, all that good sort of stuff.
Yeah, what's the Jason origin story?
The Jason origin story. Okay, so I am Jason Lengstorf. I am currently the VP of Developer Experience at Netlify. I work on making the Netlify platform more understandable, more friendly, and just more fun to use. Prior to that, I've worked in a number of places, and all of that started with me trying to be a rock star and doing a really bad job of it, but learning how to make websites along the way.
Yeah, we all have a story like that, I think. I was driving a tour bus taking old ladies back and forth to the beach when I started making web pages, and I kind of thought I could keep doing this or I could keep doing this, and I'm doing this. So
I want to get into serious stuff here in a minute, but I got to give you a quick shout out. Your website I love like websites that have just like fun little quirks and Easter eggy type things. So I'm going to put a link to the chat in your menu, especially, which is in the top right corner. If you want to check that out in chat, is quite awesome. So just no real question. Just wanted to give you props for that because I found it a lot of fun.
Well, thank you very much. That website was an effort to make myself giggle, and so in addition to the menu, I also beatboxed all the sounds on that site. So every sound that the site makes is me being ridiculous into a microphone.
If you want to pick up that rockstar career and focus it around beatboxing, think of me. I'll be your agent. I'll get my Cavaricis out of the attic. I think they're somewhere, and we'll do this thing.
Perfect.
What's fun too is that I also have a talk that I've given previously to encourage people to use sound on the web. So every time I see a website that like actually uses sound and does it like in a nice way, it just gives me like good feels inside. So because I don't know, on the web, somebody made a dictate a few years ago that like the web shall not have sound. I think it's super unfortunate because sound is totally fine on apps. So I don't know why we stick away from it. But anyways, I could go on a whole rant about that.
Yeah, I know. I love sound. I think we got a little too gung ho with like auto playing like theme music, and I went to one too many restaurant websites that were really built to be a whole experience.
Yeah. All right, so we want to talk today. I know you wanted to talk about Jamstack, serverless functions. Why don't you intro what you want to talk about today? Because I think there's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So what I'm going to be talking about today is, well, not really talking about, I'm just going to be sharing it, is I'm going to be doing some live coding around serverless functions. And I'm really excited about this as a general just kind of approach to things, because I just feel like it's a superpower for developers. The strength of this is, if I can find this article that just came out. Where did it go? Here. This is an article that I just wrote on serverless functions. Let me get this off the screen so that it's not like Inception. And so this is an article that I just wrote about serverless functions, and the looks like I'm not logged in to share it. So let me put it in the private chat. Maybe you can relay that for me.
Yeah, I'll get it in the chat for you.
But so the idea behind it all is that I feel like front-end developers in general are being asked to do more and more work in their day-to-day. When I joined IBM, for example, I showed up as a front-end developer, and the first thing I was asked to do was install Nginx, install Docker, set up a reverse proxy, and manage a Kubernetes container. And that was a lot. It immediately threw me out of my expertise. It made me feel like I had no idea what was going on. and I ended up having to ask for a bunch of help from the back-end teams, and it just really slowed me down. And as we continued on with the front-end work, we would hit these little things where part of our job suddenly became, you're managing a node server, or you have to get this deployment out and auto scaled on whatever service. And it all just made us feel less confident in our deploys, and we took longer to get things done. So when we started moving to this model of a decoupled front end and serverless functions, all of a sudden we felt the ability to get things done quickly, because with serverless functions, all we had to do was write that little bit of logic that we needed. I know how to write an API. I can say, hey, when somebody hits this route, I want to return this data. That part makes sense to me. The part that I would struggle with is all the boilerplate and the scaling and the API gateways and the DNS routing and all the proxy stuff. That's not my expertise. It's not what I do. So when I saw serverless, it was like, oh wait, I can be a full stack developer, because when you use serverless, you're outsourcing all of those bits of boilerplate that you don't need, that don't matter for the kind of stuff that as a front end developer would pull you into the back end. So you can set up little proxies, you can set up little APIs, you can do a little bit of logic, or use a private token in an environment variable that you wouldn't be able to put in a front end. All those sorts of things that start to drag you as a front end developer deeper into the back end of the stack. Now you can keep them in a mostly front end environment without getting into that deployment stuff and that DevOps stuff. So as a front end developer, I feel like getting into serverless functions has really been a superpower. And so to kind of show how that works, I was thinking I could just build a little serverless API and deploy it. I have an empty folder, and I was going to just start there.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right, so let me get this. Where did this go? Here it is. So I have empty folder. There's nothing in it. I just git initialized it. And so what I'm going to do is open this up in my code editor. And so what I want to do is I want to create a serverless function. And so I'm going to use the Netlify way to do it, because it handles all the things that I don't want to. So let's just start out with like the easiest possible version of I just named folder hello.js. Dang it. I get rid of just the one folder. You're going to make me delete them all. Delete. Okay, there we go. Now let's add a file, and we're going to call this one hello.js. Right. And so in here, I can now do what's called a handler. And so a handler is just a function. We're doing exports.handler. It's a named thing. And I'm going to make it async. And then I need to return a status code. And I'm going to send a 200, which is like normal. Whenever you load a web page, you get a 200. And I'm going to send a body of hello. Right. And so that is my first serverless function. This is the simplest serverless function we can write. It's nice and small, very compact. And then I want to run it. So I'm going to run Netlify dev. And this is the Netlify CLI. So Netlify CLI is over here. This is a link if you want to get into that. So let me drop another link for Relay.
Yep.
This starts running, and you can see that it started up. It's checking. We don't have a public directory. So when I open this localhost 8888, it's going to say it doesn't find anything. But that's because we didn't build a homepage yet. So then if I go into .netlify functions hello, I'm going to see my text hello. And that's a little bit small. So let me make that bigger. So then if I go in here and I want to make a change, I can say hello React Wednesdays, like how I pronounce the D. And
so I do that silently every time I write it.
But so now we have we've got a serverless function, and I'm running it locally. And you'll notice I didn't do anything other than install the Netlify CLI and create this Netlify functions hello folder. So there's no config or anything yet. But I do want to add a little config now, because I don't like this .netlify/functions. I want it to just be an API. So let's make it an API. So netlify.toml. And then in here, I'm going to say redirects. And I want to redirect from, we'll go from API. And I'm just going to do everything. We'll just grab a splat, and we'll go to Netlify functions and apply that splat. And I want to use the status code of 200 because I want that to be, like when you hit this, that's what you're hitting. You're getting the API route and you're going to get a 200 for it. So I just changed my redirect. So let me restart this so that we can make that work. And now I've got my setup here, but instead of the Netlify functions, I can just go to API, and now I've got an API. So I just set up /API/hello. It now works. And if I want to return some data with that, I can do something like, let's get, I don't know, some corgis, and we'll return some different corgis. So again, I'm gonna exports.handler, and we'll make this async. But this time I want to get the event, and I'm going to pull some data out of this. So I want to get the path. I might be wrong on this. We're gonna see how this goes, and let's see if I can get that out of the event. I'm gonna console log it just to make sure I know what I'm doing here. And then we're gonna start by just returning the same thing, a status code of 200 and a body. This time let's JSON stringify an object, and we'll just say test true. And so this is going to be, if I get my JavaScript syntax right, this is going to be a function that will return some JSON. And I'm stopping and restarting because we just added a new one. But so now if I go to corgis, it sends me back my JSON test true. And if I look in my log, I can see my path is API corgis. Now, here's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to get one of a set of corgis. So let's give them IDs, and we'll call one boop, right? And so that goes here, and we want the other one to be named beep. And so we'll have our two corgis in here. Let's just set up a quick object. And so let's have one corgi. Let's make it an array, actually. That's what it should be. No, I don't want it to do that because I want it to be easier to look up. So we'll start with a key called beep, and it's going to have boop, and that'll have a name of boop, and favorite toy will be peanut butter puzzle thing, whatever those chew toys that dogs have where they
love them.
I can't remember the name.
Right? And so our next dog we're going to name Beep. And Beep really likes stick. Beep is a traditionalist. And so then down in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the ID of this dog. And so we can see here that it's going to be API corgis beep. So I'm going to split this on its slash. So I'll get empty API corgis and beep, which means that I can go with destructuring empty API corgis, and then we'll get the ID from path.split on the slash. Okay, so now what I can do is I can say const corgi equals corgis ID. Right, and I could have set this up a lot of ways. We could have done an array and parsed it, but isn't that easy? And then I'm going to switch this out for our corgi. All right, so now I've got beep, and I get beep. Now I want boop. I've got boop. Okay, we just built an API. And so if we wanted to, we could also pull this in from a third-party API. We could use a database. We could use anything we want in here because we have access to the whole node setup. So if I wanted to pull in node fetch, and how much time do I have? Because I don't want to run over here.
Let's see. You got 27 minutes. You got quite a bit of time here.
27 minutes. Holy crap. Okay, we can do so much. Yeah. All right, so let's do this. And so what I'm going to do then is let's go and find ourselves an API that we can use. So I have an API on learnwithjason.dev. So Learn with Jason is a live stream that I run twice a week, and I have an API for the schedule. All right, and so this brings up upcoming episodes. It's going to give us an array of upcoming episodes. And so if I want to hit that, what I can do is let's make another function, and this one we will call schedule. And we're going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to drop this at the top, and then I'm going to copy paste some things because I don't want to make you watch me write a handler again. And so in here, we're going to have our path, and then I'm going to get rid of this part, and we'll go back to just an object there for now. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to go to API schedule and get the, let's see, how do we want to make this work? We're going to search for in the title, and I'm going to look at this on the Learn with Jason site so that I can actually read what's in the titles without having to visually parse JSON. Is there anything here that's going to let us do? Yeah, so we can do a search for things about functions. So we've got 3 episodes on the schedule now because I've been very lazy and haven't updated all the episodes that are coming up. But what we'll be able to do is if we pass no argument, we'll get back all 3. And if we pass a search, we'll be able to search on text. So I'm going to use the word functions here because I can see that in both. So we should be able to search for functions and get back 2 upcoming episodes. So let's make that work. The first thing I need to do is I'm going to need a package that'll let me send HTTP requests. So I'm going to npm install node fetch. Node fetch is a small polyfill that lets us use the browser fetch API in Node with a more or less equivalent API. There are a couple small caveats, but I haven't run into them yet. So once I have that, I can start my server again. And I'm going to then get fetch equals require node fetch.
By the way, Chad helped us out. Secret fish. It's peanut butter Kong is the name of the thing.
Peanut butter Kong. That's what it is. Yeah. This is great. So let me look at the chat. I think I saw a question in here too about my microphone. This is a Shure SM7B with a whole bunch of other gear. You can go to jason.af/uses if you want to see more about that stuff. But don't make the mistakes I made. Don't buy this much gear. It just makes you sad. All right, so let's do this. I'm gonna get all of my upcoming episodes, or let's just grab the whole schedule, and that is going to be await fetch, and then we want to grab this URL here. And so let's do it a way that I've seen that I like. We're going to get the response, right? And then down here we can say if response okay. If it's not okay, then we're going to return status code 500 and a body of oh no. Very helpful error messages here. But if we get here, then what we can do is we can say the schedule is going to be await response JSON. And so if you've seen this before, what we're doing is we're getting back a response object. It's an actual data structure. And then when we run .json, it runs a kind of toString method that gives us back a JSON object based on what came back from the API. And so if I go to console log this, then we'll have, why don't I console log both the schedule and the path? And we'll just move that down. And so this is going to give us back an empty object, but what I'll be able to do is go in here, get our schedule, and we came back empty, but in here we can see here are the items from the API that I hit and our schedule. So what I'm going to do is let's pick do a search, and we want the search to be like functions, right? So this is the path that we want so that we can get in there. And if we look down again, we see the same thing. We got our schedule back, but now we have this API schedule search functions. And so what I'm going to do in this case is instead of exploding the path, which would be fine, it would work. I'm just going to, because I know what the path is, I'm going to get the term will be path.replace. And then we're going to just get API schedule search and replace it with empty. And so if that, now that I'm thinking about this, we might not want to do that, because if that doesn't match, like if I just go to schedule, let's see what the term is when we do that. Live debugging with Jason.
People
you're
learn a
good.
lot
As I go, can you tell?
hear the thought process.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm guessing you're like trying to build it into the URL so you can search, and then it'll like look through the JSON and return just the ones you want, more or less.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this works. We get the term of functions. We'd want to search by that. But what happens if I just get the schedule? Does it give me the whole path back? It does. Blast. Okay, so what that means then is I need to either do the explosion, which is, you know what, why don't we just do that? Because we know that works. So we're going to get empty, then we're going to get API, then we're going to get schedule, then we're going to get search, and then we're going to get our term, and our term might be empty. So we'll default it to empty. And upon making that, then we're going to split on / like that. Okay. And if I've done my comma count correctly, this should give us an empty term.
Drum roll.
I'm the greatest programmer alive. All right.
It often
All
feels
right,
like
so,
that,
let's
right?
test it
Bring
one
on
more.
the dopamine.
All right, so let's try it again with the search term. Make sure we still get our search term. We do. Perfect. All right, so now we can do the work. We've got our term. So I'm going to get a list of filtered. So let's go with filtered, and we will do schedule.filter. And for each episode, we're going to get an episode. I'm just going to actually, you know what? I give things short names and confuse people. Just call it what it is. So we're going to check if episode dot title contains. Is that a?
Oh man, I've Googled this. There's a Stack Overflow post I've looked up 37 times.
Let's try contains. Let's see what happens. Contains our term.
I think it's includes.
It includes?
Yeah.
Every time.
I know. Okay. It should be contains though.
It's a sign of the bad DSL if you guys can't come up with it. It should be intuitive and magic. I'll start drafting the letter now.
All right. So now what we should get, if I've done this correctly, is this time we should get a list of 2 episodes. Let's see what happens. I got an empty array. No, what have I done? Okay, so that means that something I did was incorrect. So
we logged the term before, right? Like we had the right term.
We logged the term before and we know that works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my favorite debugging trick, which is to open the console and just drop this thing in here. So let's go with episodes.
Oh yes, check if the filter works.
And then I'm going to say, let's filter. And for each one, we're going to get an episode. And I want to make sure that episode.
Chad is saying maybe case sensitivity.
Oh, okay.
To, like, all right. Maybe to lowercase both of them.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
What if we do like a match?
Getting fit.
Oh, he's gonna regex on the fly. Let's go.
People. Regex on the fly. Let's see if I can do it. We're gonna try.
Yeah, I think you just with the I at the end. I think you're onto it.
Right. Okay. So how am I gonna do this? We're gonna have to do new regex because I have to put it in like this, right? And then we're gonna do term, and then we're gonna set it as I. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Try.
No. Okay. Hold on. I got close.
That's just parentheses.
Yeah, that's syntax. You got this.
No. Okay.
We got a man down.
All right. Let's try it again. The term is gonna be functions.
Okay.
First try regular expression, third try JavaScript syntax.
That's never happened before in the history of humanity.
All right. So now that we've got that, then I can take this out and let's grab this and we'll stick it in here. Let me drop this below because I screwed a couple things up. Let's get the filter. And we're going to drop this in. Good. And then we want to use the term again.
Yep.
All right. Moment of truth.
Hey.
Good. 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 Okay. Now, does it work if we have nothing? Because it should match on nothing, right? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay. And what if we search on something that's not in there, like tacos? Comes back empty. There we go. So now using serverless functions and just about nothing else, we've been able to pull together a few different APIs here, right? And so you can do anything with these, and this is why I'm so excited about them. You could process an image, you can hook up to a third-party service, you can do all sorts of amazing things. And again, all we had to do was create this Netlify functions, and then because we wanted to rewrite our URLs, we set up this redirect. And everything else that we did is just like node code. So no boilerplate, no anything like that.
It kind of strikes me how much this feels like, I mean, in my head, I usually associate serverless functions with like, oh, like some bit of utility code my app needs, right? Like I need to do like store a token or something like this. But this really feels more like I'm building like the API layer of my application. It feels almost more like traditional backend development, just because I mean, at least to me, it seems like you can do pretty much whatever you would normally do if you're just building out your back end of whatever you're building.
That's what feels so powerful to me, right? That's why I feel like this is such a superpower, is that as a developer, we're putting ourselves in a situation where we're able to, like, I need to build an API, no problem. I need to handle this image upload, no problem. I need to handle a form submission, no problem. I want to make a call out to the GitHub API, but I need a secure token, no problem. I can use that environment variable. Like, all those things are traditionally, at least, have been, you know, oh, I got to make a rec with the backend team for a server so that they can set this up so that I can do the thing. And then you have to maintain it. You have to figure out how to run it locally. And so that's what's so exciting to me about this, is that, you know, we are, well, how many minutes have we been doing this now? 10, 15? It
can't be 10, 15 minutes. And, you know, I wouldn't understate the things you'd have to set up and learn if you want to do all this on your own.
And so let's go a step further here, and let's take this thing live. So I'm going to echo node modules into gitignore. Right? Now we've got a gitignore, we've got our netlify.toml, a netlify folder, and our package lock. So let's, oh wait, I probably should actually put this into a package lock so that so let me do an npm init yes, and let me install.
Yeah, because I'm guessing Netlify needs that to like do its magic.
I forgot to initialize the node package to say what the we need this dependency, right? So now that we've got that, let's add everything. And so this is everything we're sending up. We've got our 3 functions that we built. We've got a netlify.toml, a gitignore so that we don't send up the Git modules. And I'm going to use the GitHub CLI, so gh repo create. It's going to create a repo called React Wednesday Serverless. I'm not going to give it a description. We're going to make it public. There it goes. Okay, so that exists. So now let me commit, and we'll say serverless functions. Yay. Okay. And then now that I have that, let's git push upstream origin main.
You know, this might be the first time I've ever seen somebody live code and make the code available after the presentation as part of the demo.
And so now that this is live, and look, this is my favorite part of this terminal hack that I have. This is a link now. So if I go over here and I click this, it pops me right out to the repo. So I can drop this in for the chat. So here's what we built just now. So if you want to take a look at that, you can get in there right away. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Netlify CLI again and run this command called init. And so when I run the init command, it's going to let me create and configure a new site. That's what I want to do. I'm going to put it on my own team. And I'm going to call this React Wednesdays serverless. Spell it. Okay. I don't have a build command because, again, we didn't add a homepage to this. This is only an API. And my directory deploy can be empty. Yep. It auto picked up that Netlify functions because that's our default. And there we go. Okay. So then if I go a step further, I can run Netlify open. And this is going to bounce me over to the Netlify dashboard, which it did in the wrong window. Thanks. So let's put it over here. So this is the dashboard, and we can see that the site is already published. So then if I jump over to the site here, again, there's nothing there, but if I go API hello, there it is. You now have a completely live API, and you can do all of that good stuff, right? So this is what I find so exciting about this. You know, we want to go get corgis. Oop. Yeah, that's what I want. And then we can do a schedule and search for functions. And we're hitting that third-party API. Bam! Look at it go. So this is kind of what I'm getting at here, right? How many minutes do I have left? I might have one more thing to show you.
You got 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. Do we have questions coming into chat? If you want to ask questions, please hit me.
I'd say go for it. I'll bring up questions as they come in.
Yeah, okay. The one question I'm sure you'll get to is, let's say that I want to start with Netlify. Like, what tasks do I have to start to get going before I can do what you just did? But we can take care of that later if you like.
You can go to Netlify, and when you go to sign up, you just use your, I'm already logged in. Let's open an incognito. So netlify.com, and you go to sign up, and it will let you use your GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, or a plain old email. And once that's set up, that's it. That's all it takes. So it would be that, and then I installed the Netlify CLI. Those are the two pieces that I did before this call.
And then you get all this power in the hands of the front-end developer without having to learn all the back-end magic and weirdness. Exactly
that. So here's one thing that you can see is that this is taking a little bit longer than I want it to make these calls. So, you know, each one is taking, let's see, I'm filtering down. Here's my function. 778 milliseconds, you know, to hit it, and it's hitting an API and bringing it back 518 milliseconds. This is fine. It's fast enough, but I'd like it to be faster. So I'm going to do a new thing that we call distributed persistent rendering.
That sounds very fancy.
it does sound a little bit fancy. It's a pattern for making things a little bit quicker. And yeah, if you don't mind just relaying the links that I'm throwing over there, because I forgot to sign into StreamYard. And so this pattern, the idea behind this pattern is that when you're using the Jamstack, what makes the Jamstack so powerful is that you're kind of pre-compiling things and then putting it on a CDN so that you have a static asset. You don't have to worry about managing caching. You're not worried about overloading APIs or things like that. So when you start building a serverless function, you're no longer using that Jamstack pattern, but sometimes you want to. So if I'm in between deploys, I really, you know, my data doesn't change. I have the same number of episodes on learnwithjason.dev between deploys, because every time I change that, it's going to rebuild the site. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that after you call my API once, it doesn't have to make all those calls again. I can consider the result of that function to be pure and return the same thing instantly from the cache, so that you get a much, much faster setup. And so I'm going to do that by installing a helper. So let's install Netlify functions. And then in my API here, and the one where we're going to notice it the most is this schedule, I'm going to import builder. I read a lot of ES6. Require Netlify functions. Then here, I'm going to change this one to const handler. And at the bottom, I'm going to do exports.handler equals builder handler. Okay, so no functional changes here. It's all the same, but what I'm doing is I'm wrapping the function in this builder helper. And what this does on the Netlify side is it tells Netlify that if the path of the function is the same, you can return the same response. You can permanently cache that because it's intended to be pure. It will always give you the same result given the same path. So having done that, let's take this thing live. I'm going to git add everything. And then we'll git commit and we'll say feature add DPR for the schedule route.
Is there some concept of like a timeout sort of deal with that too? Like if you want to say this is cache this for so long, but it might change in the future.
So we're talking about that, but right now the reason that we haven't done that is that it creates inconsistency in your cache layers. So instead of having a cache layer here and that's it, you have like a cache layer for your static assets, and then you've got a separate cache layer for your APIs, and that starts to create this sort of exploding complexity problem.
Yeah, the famous saying is there's two hard problems in computer science: naming things and cache invalidation.
Exactly. And so if you have one layer of cache invalidation is easy. For every additional layer, it gets exponentially harder. One of my favorite things to show is factorial math. So if you look at factorial math, what you'll see is that, and the way that this works is if you like look at combinations of things, how many unique combinations of things you can get. So if you do 1 factorial, the result is 1. If you do 3 factorial, the result is 6. If you do 10 factorial, the result is 3,628,800. So as you start adding layers, the amount of things that you need to keep track of, the amount of ways that things can break, exponentially explode. It gets unbelievably, I think they call it a factorial explosion. Like it's really kind of mind-boggling how fast things get out of hand when you take that approach.
Yeah, caching is ridiculous. I work for a site that shall remain nameless, but they sold cars and boats and whatnot. And we were going through our caching strategy, and someone finally realized if you cache the odometer reading, it's all going to go very bad. Yeah, I mean, like make, model, year, that's all cool. Red, yellow, we got that, but leave odometer out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen, you know, at companies I've worked at in the past, at companies that I consult with now, you'll see that like they regularly have run into problems where production was down for 3 days because their caching strategy didn't work the way they thought. And when they invalidated one piece of it, it would refresh, but it would pull in like partially cached things from another layer. And then it all got broken because it was like out of date, out of sync assets. And so they're trying to figure out how to get everything to invalidate at exactly the same time so they don't pick up anything that's like stuck in the cache. It just gets bad.
We wish them well. There was a question in chat I wanted to get to, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to add more to that.
Well, so let me show you how this works, right? So I just did the deployment is done. So let's do our first load. Okay, 929 milliseconds. Second load, 38 milliseconds, 37, 39. Yeah, so this is that distributed persistent rendering stepping in. We don't need to process the function anymore. We can just return it directly from the edge node. And that's why this pattern is so powerful. I know that my episodes aren't going to change. And then if I go to a different one, like I get the schedule, you know, my first load, oh, it looks like this one's going to hang on me for a second. Oh, 4 seconds. What have you done? But follow-ups, 40 milliseconds, 40, 38. So it gets really, really fast after that first load. And this also means that you could do something like set up a post-deploy hook to go and hit all of your DPR routes to pre-prime that cache. So no one will ever get a slow call. They'll always get it in 40 milliseconds.
Yeah, and I think this sort of thing is pretty common. Lots of people have these sort of serverless functions because they need to hit an endpoint. Like sometimes it's to hide like a API token you're using. But if it's like a thing that's totally cacheable, this is awesome because lots of times you hit those third-party servers that aren't the fastest things in the world.
But yeah, so that's kind of why this is so powerful and why I'm so excited about it is like, how much time would it have taken for me today to provision a server, get it stood up, get the routing set up properly, get the proxies written, get this thing deployed to production, handle the DNS routing to be able to do the wildcard redirect there, hit a third-party thing, set up the caching layers for it. Like I would spend days or even weeks
Get a
on this
certificate.
in previous companies.
And it's not only that upfront time, because I think some people may actually already have that infrastructure. It's really the ongoing maintenance that can also be a problem. And you alluded to this before, but what happens when a function gets popular? That server is now potentially going to overload, and now you got to figure out how to balance that, and what do you do about this and that, and like there's all these dark costs that people don't really think about later on in the project, but you're going to maintain your server or it's going to go home.
Yeah, exactly that, right? It's unbelievably expensive, right? And I think the other thing too is, it's like the last thing that the DevOps team needs to spend their time on is like release management for front ends. They should be working on the mission critical backends and really worrying about uptime of critical services. Handling the stuff that makes the front end work is a huge amount of overhead if your front ends are really tightly coupled to back end. So by doing this thing of getting serverless functions, getting these front ends decoupled, you're taking the front end team, making them more autonomous and giving them more ability to work and succeed. And you're also decreasing the amount of time that your team spends on non-critical like release management and other DevOps things that don't really help. They just end up becoming a lot of busy work.
Yeah, support work, not business value.
Exactly.
So the last question that came in, and then we can start to wrap up here, was around just like pricing and production usage. Like, what'll this look like for like a real team out there? How does all that work?
Yeah. So if you want to start looking at the pricing, let's look at. We just go right to it. I hope that's right. Let's see. So with your functions, you get 125 serverless functions per site per month. And then it starts to go, and this is on the free tier, right? So for a lot of teams, you're not going to exceed 125,000. And importantly, if you're using the builder functions, only the first call counts against your 125K, because subsequent calls come from the edge nodes, not from the serverless function itself. So if you're caching, you can really stick around. You can get away from ever having to pay for anything if you're using this layer well. And then the same thing with like, basically what I love about Netlify, one of the reasons that I came to this company is that it's very much set up to work with teams as they're growing. And then as you start to make money as a business, you start to pay for the services that you're using to help you make money. And that to me feels like it's partnership and growth in the right way.
Yeah. And even looking through these pricing numbers, even for a one-person team, like none of this gets crazy.
Well, cool, man. Jason, why don't you, this has been awesome. Why don't you, like, to wrap up, hit us with any links, like if people want to follow you, if they want to learn more about this stuff, learn more about you, where should we send them? So
if you want to follow me, let me do a couple things here. You can head over to Twitter. I spend way too much time on this silly website. You can also follow me on, whoops, that's the wrong tab. Let's go to learnwithjason.dev. This is where I hang out. I'm on Twitch. So if you want to follow me on Twitch directly, you can go to twitch.tv/jlengstorf. And let's see, the volume is down. Good. So that is those between those places, that's where you're going to find me. I stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning. Check my schedule for the actual times. You can hit this add on Google Calendar. It'll just put it on your Google Calendar so you can see when I'm going live and who I'm going live with.
Cool stuff, man. Well, thanks for joining us today, taking your time. Appreciate it. I definitely learned a lot. I've got some ideas now of things we can build. I don't have an API schedule for React Wednesday, so now I've got a task, and now I know how to build the API for it, right?
I can't wait to see what you build. And yeah, if you build things, please tweet them at me on Twitter. I want to see them. I'd love to see what you're building and even what you're thinking about building. So hit me up.
All right.
Excellent. Nice meeting you.
Well, cool, man, Jason. It was nice seeing you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Bye.